After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Build Connected. Adam, episode 62. You are back in the saddle.
Whew, I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired. I think it's like 2 in the morning, Indonesia time. So I'm still adjusting. Yeah, vacation is over. Here I
Yeah,
am.
it happens to the best of us, right? It takes some adjustment coming back from vacation. It takes it takes time on the front end, right? You go on vacation and it takes some time to quiet the mind down and get into vacation mode, right? Finally, you get there where you can really relax and enjoy what you're seeing, but it takes a little time. And then on the back end, like you've now transitioned into your chill vibes, right? And now you've got to pick it back up and get back into work. It takes some time there too.
Yeah, man, I tell you, I watched a lot of movies. It was a 24-hour plane ride, more or less. Have you ever been to Singapore?
No.
Wow, that's an airport right there. They have an area of the airport in Singapore. They call it the Jewel, and it's like the most enormous mall you've ever been in with this giant, I showed you some pictures, this giant waterfall fountain that's 5 stories tall, and then it goes 2 stories underground. You know, you and I have talked about like pieces of glass and what's the biggest piece of glass you can get. They have this piece of glass that is a cylinder that's about 25, 30 feet tall, that's round, that captures all the water from the waterfall. I mean, it was amazing. Anyway, we spent, I don't know, 6, 7 hours in the Singapore airport, but yeah, good times. And then 14-hour flight to San Francisco. And here we are, back at it. All right, well, let's kick off a product. We always start off talking about a product that we like, but I'm going to talk about something that we haven't used this particular product, but it's something that I'd like us to use because I think it's a brilliant product. It's made by Dorkin. It's a Delta Dry stucco and stone ventilated rain screen. So the beauty of this product is it replaces the 2 layers of felt paper that's typically used when stucco is applied, right? Um, and it basically has a drainage mat that's built into it, and it also has a like a mesh product that's meant to take the that scratch coat of the stucco, which is that first coat that you do. Typically you'd have 2 layers of that felt paper, and then you would have to staple on this other product. It's a metal lath generally that would take that first coat. This is an all-in-one product. So, great product, makes a lot of sense. It takes some time away from the application process, I think, as well. And it's something we should incorporate. But the tricky part of a new product, right, is getting your stucco guys to learn how to use it. And we'll get into our tradespeople and learning new techniques, I think, at the end of this podcast, but we'll come back to that.
You know, Dorkin makes a lot of great products. We've used their rain screens and some other like matrix products in the past behind panels that we've done on facades. But you're right, we haven't used it in the stucco application. And stucco to me is it's a very old world trade. It's not a dying trade, but it feels like our stucco guys, and this might vary, depending on personalities, but they're very ingrained in the way they install. And I think it's probably for good reason, right? They're used to that double layer and the security, the waterproofing that sort of comes along with it. So they're very ingrained. So having them open their eyes to a new product, it takes some teaching, right? And you need to share with them what your goals are in the envelope of the house.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is something we consider as, from our end, right? Like we're gonna first apply our membrane, our first layer, and then typically the stucco guys would do their 2 layers of that felt paper, and this is a product they should be installing, but maybe this is something that we install for them, and it's a conversation we have to have depending on their comfort level because there are specific procedures that need to be followed, and like you said, it's tough getting these guys that are used to older techniques to bring in new techniques. And again, I want to piggyback this at the end of our episode talking about this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it feels like it's something that we should own because it's very detail specific, right? And I think we like owning that aspect of it. But, I'm not sure. Like you're right. I think that a stucco guy eventually when they understand what you're going for, um, and the security that it brings to the house with that integrated drainage layer, right? I think it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, to your point, I mean, this it really ties into a much bigger point with the trades, right? It's when you use these new products, you can't just grab a roll of some science forward product, right, and install it like you have, say, like let's pick on maybe a house wrap of sorts, right? Something that might have a dimple in it or some other feature, right? It's a lot different than say a standard house wrap. So it's not just about like a shingle and a staple, right? You need to read instructions. You need to understand what the proper installation method is. And you need to train your guys, right? It's a new product. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of reading to understand how you maintain the warranty on that product, right? Now it goes in properly.
Let me put a little meat on the bone there for you, okay? You like talking in the abstract. Let me talk about where the rubber meets the road here, okay? So, a good example would be let's talk about Hardy, right? For us as contractors, we want to make sure that we're following proper procedure when installing this kind of thing. And plenty of guys out there will say, "I've installed this before, like I'm good," right? But look, every product that we install, we always want to read through what the manufacturer puts together in terms of their instructions, right? They have their own instruction manuals, like you said. So, for something like Hardy, depending on which Hardy product you're going to be using, there are requirements for nailing patterns and spacing and penetrations and where you have butt joints in terms of the spacing between those butt joints and do they get caulked or do they stay open, right? All of this stuff, if it's not done according to the manufacturer's specs, you're going to void the warranty that they provide. So, no matter what product you're using, you really want to pay attention to that and pass that along to your subcontractors and make sure that they're following that procedure. So, it's important that you observe and make sure that they're doing that because, a good example, I think we talked about this before, Pace, is zip tape, right? We use a lot of zip tape when we're using um, zip sheeting and we tape all the seams, but it's not about just taping the seams, right? You're required to roll using a roller over that tape to create that bond. And a way we check in on our subs to make sure that they're rolling the tape is our rollers have a little dimple pattern within the rollers, and you can see and inspect the tape. And if the tape doesn't show those dimples on it, it hasn't been rolled. So this is a way that we can really observe and make sure that our subcontractors are doing what they say they're doing. So again, it's always about following procedure and passing that along to the people that work with us.
This is the old trust but verify phrase that you like to use. The roller is our way of verifying. I mean, you brought up Hardy. I mean, this is such um, a kind of a touch point for me, and I've mentioned it before. I've lived in two houses that had James Hardy cementitious siding on the outside, and it was there when I purchased the house. I didn't install it, but in both cases, every butt joint was caulked, and it's something that I fought for every year I lived in the house. Like year after year, like that caulk would fail at a joint, and I'd have to come in and make a decision. Do I just peel it out, do some touch up paint, assume that the rest of the install is right, or Do I recaulk it, right, with a color matching paint? I think in my last house, it was green, right? So I had that color matched caulking. And then, you know, just so it matched the rest of the house, but I knew that it was going to fail sometime in the future. It was installed improperly to begin with, and I fought it for the 9 years I was in the house.
Yeah. I mean, and not only, following the manufacturer's specs on things, but we also rely on the people that work for these companies, right? We have reps that we work with as well, and they rep a particular product that they stand behind, and their job is to come out to a job site if we require it, and we rely on those guys, and we've had them come out many, many times, and we'll continue to do so, especially on new products that come out that we want to use. We'll call the rep and we'll set up a meeting, and they'll walk through the installation process with our guys and us. And it's great to utilize that as well. And even as a homeowner, if you're kind of a big DIY person and maybe you're taking on the siding yourself, you can go ahead and take advantage of that as well. Call those manufacturers, find out who the rep is in your area, have them come out and make sure that you're doing it right. And that way you can maintain their warranty and know that your installation is done right.
Yeah. And then outside of that, there's always, you run into these one-off solutions, right? It might be a detail if you're doing a fence or a deck, right, and you're using some sort of a composite, right? You might have a little area that just falls outside of the boundaries of every manual, and you've got to create a solution. And I think that's where there's room for craftsmanship, right? You trust your experience, you know the general guidelines on how the product is put together, and then you might create a one-off solution for that little detail that you're working on. And that's artistry in our world, right? And it's satisfying.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's something we do on every project. So, yeah, well, I think we've covered that. What are you going to talk about today, Pace?
It's interesting, I feel like on every single job that we've got a deck or a fence, we always talk about this, and I don't think we've ever talked about it on the show. Here in California, we're typically using a redwood or a cedar for our fencing and oftentimes on decks, even though we've really migrated into the composite slash PVC world because of fire concerns here. But when you're using a natural wood product, just understanding that over time, the tannins bleed out from that wood and it changes colors. So what starts off typically as a very warm reddish hue, right? Over time, that product is going to silver. And so it's fine. The wood stands up, even though it's a different color. But if the aesthetic, that warm aesthetic that it started as, is what you were drawn to, you need to know that every 1 to 3 years, you're going to be sanding and oiling that product. A lot of people talk about pressure washing it. I'm not a fan of that. I think you and I disagree a little bit here, but doing some sort of a cleaning, right, and then re-oiling is the way you get back to that sort of warm feeling.
No doubt. I mean, look, you and I, we talk about maintenance on a house and using products that can, reduce the amount of maintenance that you need to do. And I'm a huge proponent of that. I mean, as a homeowner, I'm into kind of less maintenance as I get older and trying to find those particular products. I mean, look, power washing is pretty satisfying. So that's why I love using these composite products on exterior decks and that sort of thing, even with siding. But I'm living that pain of maintaining the warm color of a wood. We have a bunch of retaining walls here at our house, and we've wrapped those retaining walls with cedar, and my wife loves the natural look of the cedar. Originally, I wanted to use a composite product that kind of replicated that look, but I got overruled, and she said, "Look, I'll take on the sanding and oiling when it needs to be done." Let's just say, that it doesn't happen as often as it needs to happen, and that cedar, it really changes color after 1 year it's time. But look, it's hard to do it every year. So, I think we're sanding and refinishing every 3 years, and man, it's a lot of work. But I think a lot of people are drawn to that kind of warm color that you originally saw. And others will just let it gray, and that's fine too. But for us, we live that pain of constant maintenance. So yeah, you got to stay with it and figure out which oil will work for whatever particular wood that you have. Hardwoods require different oils than softer woods, and just do your homework on that.
I've got two analogies here. They're both winners. Like first, I mean, you've got your own Jelly of the Month club, right? It's just the gift that keeps on giving. So you made a good selection there. The other one is it's very similar to the choice you make when your hair starts to silver, like both of us, right? You have the choice. Do you go with the just for men or do you just let it gray, let it silver?
Oh
Like
boy.
it's definitely an aesthetic. We both have made our choice. You can see on camera.
Man, yeah, as the years go, I'm taking my hat off. You can see it's more gray than dark brown hair these days. I would never use just for men, but aren't you just curious? Don't you just want to see what it would look like? How
No.
many years would it shave off? I'm not gonna do it. I wouldn't do it, but it would be funny as a gag.
Yeah, you're definitely in the more salt than pepper club now.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for that.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on another episode of Build Connected. I'm Pace.
And I'm Adam.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.